Have you ever considered what may occur if Tanjiro had encountered a different Hashira in episode 1? The siblings would be cruelly killed by all the pillars, or would any of them spare them? Would Tanjiro eventually acquire additional breathing techniques as a result of this? Starting with Sanemi, the wind pillar, we'll discuss Tanjiro's interactions with each Hashira. It's crucial to understand that Sanemi is far more cruel than Giyu, as demonstrated during episode 22 when he cut Nezuko and used his blood as bait to entice her. His horrific background, in which a demon destroyed his entire family and left only him and his brother alive, is another significant factor. It's highly improbable that he would want to hear Tanjiro out because of these reasons. Sanemi is adamant that humans and demons cannot live in harmony. So even if Nezuko tries to defend Tanjiro, he won't give a damn and will kill her without any compassion. Tanjiro would thereafter be devastated because that night, in addition to losing his entire family, he had also lost Nezuko. Sanemi would probably just leave this time, labeling Tanjiro a weakling since there isn't really a motive for him to murder him. Even though Tanjiro lived, he wouldn't have anyone to instruct him in demon slayer techniques. So driven by hatred, he would set out on his own quest to track down those guilty for his family's passing. The only skills Tanjiro could rely on without any demon slayer training would be his sense of smell and his unnaturally powerful headbutt, and I don't think those would get him very far. He might be able to kill a few lesser demons by shining sunlight on them, but in the end, he would perish at the hands of demons without accomplishing anything. That situation is terrible, to be sure, but what if Tanjiro met Mitsuri? Would that result in a better outcome? In the Demon Slayer core, Mitsuri is one of the most kind-hearted individuals, which is understandable given that she is the love Hashira. Don't underestimate her talents though, since Mitsuri is a powerful and vicious demon slayer who takes her responsibilities as a Hashira very seriously. With all of this in mind, things would get pretty interesting if she discovered Tanjiro rather than Giyu. It's crucial to keep in mind that Mitsuri was among the select few who accepted Nezuko and afterwards treated her with love and care. She probably wouldn't have the heart to kill Nezuko if she realized how determined she was to keep her brother safe. She would then feel sorry for Tanjiro after hearing his tale and offer to teach him how to defeat demons. Tanjiro's adventure with the love Hashira would be amazing in any case, since he would be able to practice love breathing rather than water breathing. However, there is a serious issue with this. You see, when Mitsuri initially joined the Corps, she was actually Rengoku's pupil, and her preferred method of breathing was flame breathing. She quickly realized, though, that this look didn't fit her very well, so she came up with her own love breathing. This unusual breath technique relies mostly on the user's flexibility and speed rather than physical strength, employing a whip-like sword in place of a conventional one. Given that flexibility isn't really one of Tanjiro's strongest suits, it should be clear why this would be an issue. With this approach, he would be far less strong than in the original tale and would probably pass away early in the series. Even if he survives long enough to awaken sun breathing, he would struggle to use it effectively. Tanjiro was practicing love breathing the entire time, so he wouldn't be strong enough to use sun breathing to its full potential. Sun breathing requires a user to be physically powerful regardless of the breathing technique he chooses. Tanjiro won't likely last long in this situation, in my opinion. Although there are still 6 distinct Hashiras to explore, and some of these relationships are undoubtedly unexpected, these scenarios up to this point have been fairly interesting. As the snake, Hashira, Obanai is undoubtedly one of the Demon Slayer Corps' most ruthless warriors. He even goes so far as to remind Tengen that he should have battled to the death against Gyutaro and Daki, blaming him for getting hurt when facing the weakest upper moon. The man is exceedingly severe and merciless. Considering this, things would have gone horribly wrong if he had been the one to locate Tanjiro in episode 1. Obanai wouldn't even bother to listen to Tanjiro because of the cruel person he is. He would also swiftly kill Nezuko, leaving the youngster frightened and abandoned with no one to turn to. If Tanjiro were to attempt to defend his sister by placing himself in front of her, it would likewise end tragically, because Obanai would just not give a damn and sever both of their necks in an instant. Tanjiro would be hopelessly confused even if he managed to escape the encounter without Urokodaki to instruct him in the techniques for killing demons. Similar to when he first met Sanemi. He would likely seek out the demon responsible for his family's murder, but somewhere along the route, demons would easily dispose of him. The insect Toshira Shinobu comes up next, and Tanjiro's relationship with her would be somewhat challenging. You see, at first, Shinobu's character in the program is portrayed as being incredibly upbeat and sociable, indicating that she is the sort of person who wants to get along with the demons. But that's not truly the case, as we all know. Because she lost so many loved ones to demons, she harbors a great amount of animosity for them. Does this imply that if she encountered the siblings in episode 1, she would murder Nezuko? We may never be able to know for sure, but in my opinion, there is a good probability that Tanjiro and Nezuko will both survive this conflict. Like Giyu, she would likely begin by attacking them, but after seeing a demon Nezuko defending her brother, she would be astounded. She would probably be reminded of her own sister, Kane, who was killed by demons by this. After discovering the siblings' complete background, she would be intrigued to know why Nezuko acts in this manner, and would spare them from this point on. Tanjiro would be accepted as her Sugoku, and she would teach him the insect breathing technique. Yet again, there is a significant issue with this. Similar to Mitsuri's breathing pattern, Tanjiro would have a very difficult time using insect breathing well because it was designed for Shinobu's physical weakness. He would also need to get knowledge of a variety of poisons and learn to use a special katana. Insect breathing is undoubtedly one of the worst options for Tanjiro and would ultimately make him weaker than in the original story. Even if he does successfully master this technique over the course of years, I just don't see him lasting that long. He would therefore presumably perish while fighting some of the more powerful demons, such as Rui or Jutaro. The next scenario features everyone's new favorite Hashira from the Swordsmith village, and there are only 4 more to go. One of those characters that simply doesn't care about what is going on around them and is absorbed in their own thoughts is Muichiro. Additionally, he exhibits no emotion at all and only behaves logically. Being rational is not in any way a bad thing, but for certain Hashira in this video, it's a terribly bad thing when she meets Tanjiro and his sister in the woods. It's difficult to predict what they would actually do in this circumstance, but I have no doubt that Muichiro would kill Nezuko and possibly even Tanjiro if he tried to intervene. The viewpoint of Muichiro is straightforward. As a Hashira, he must eliminate evil because Nezuko is a demon, and demons are synonymous with evil. Boom, done. We'll talk afterwards. Okay, so the experience was brief and odd, but what if Rengoku had met the siblings on that particular day? He would either carry out his Hashira duty or spare them. On the one hand, Rengoku is a rigid and well-behaved Hashira who performs his tasks. However, he also believes that the strong should always defend the poor and has good intents and a pure heart. Considering this, I think Rengoku would comprehend and empathize with Tanjiro and Nezuko if they could catch his attention and make him listen. Furthermore, it's difficult to picture Rengoku simply chopping them viciously. He simply wouldn't do it. In any case, Rengoku would instruct Tanjiro in flame breathing in this circumstance, and in contrast to the other techniques we've discussed so far, this one would actually work rather well for him. Tanjiro naturally uses the sun breathing technique, and the flame breathing technique is somewhat close to it. I'll even venture to suggest that this kind of breathing would probably work even better for him than water breathing did in the original. What would consequently occur to Tanjiro? He would undertake some low-rank missions and finally meet Rui at Mount Natugumo, so his path would be quite identical to the original. Tanjiro wasn't powerful enough to slay the demon at this point in the anime, and he often came close to death. But now that he is stronger, I think he would be able to overcome Rui by himself, not even using his sun-breathing powers. With each subsequent arc, Tanjiro would continue to get stronger, and the tale would eventually come to a conclusion that was similar to the original. Before we discuss what would transpire if Tanjiro encountered the most powerful Hashira of the present generation, let's quickly recap his encounter with Tengen. Tengen is the sound Hashira, and throughout the Entertainment District storyline, we realized how much he values people and constantly puts himself in danger to defend them. He is a very different person though, and has no pity at all when it comes to demons. It's therefore extremely difficult to see Tengen sparing Nezuko, even though we all came to appreciate him throughout the previous season. He is neither as sensitive or as hopeful as Gyomei or Rengoku. Thus, he would probably kill Nezuko without giving it any thought. It's time for Tanjiro to finally encounter Gyomei, the strongest Hashira in the series and the master of the stone-breathing technique. Thanks to Gyomei's upbringing in a religious environment, he has a deep love for all living things and is readily moved to tears, even over seemingly insignificant things. I believe that this contact would go really well for them. Gyomei is a very perceptive individual, and he would be able to tell that Nezuko is acting with goodwill. Consequently, he would not have a justification for attacking them. He would take Tanjiro under his wing and teach him the stone-breathing method after hearing Tanjiro out. Tanjiro would prioritize building up his physical strength while using Gyomei as his trainer because the stone-breathing heavily depends on it. Tanjiro would be far more powerful with this new approach than he ever was utilizing water breathing, similar to how he is with flame breathing. He would be able to use sun breathing more effectively later on in the novel thanks to his increasing physical strength. Another alteration that might be made in this edition is Tanjiro's use of a different weapon in battle, perhaps an axe or a mace given that Gyome loves those weapons. I think Tanjiro would be able to become incredibly strong with this breathing pattern, regardless of the weapon he decides to employ, and things would probably proceed as they did in the original.